Welcome to our homeschooling series. I'm here with my daughter Amy, who I believe is an expert on homeschooling, and we're very excited to share some of the principles that you need to know if you want to start to homeschool. Let me tell you a little bit about Amy because I can brag on her a lot. She has an early childhood intervention specialist degree in early childhood education. She's also a reading specialist. She's taught in several schools, regular education and special education. And she is a master at helping children who have a hard time learning. I know this because we had a daycare center together and she was phenomenal. She decided to homeschool her 2 children and has become an advisor to other moms wanting to homeschool. I'm excited to hear her story and to welcome Amy Williams to the program. I also want to tell you that she worked for VIP Kids teaching online. She was able to help her family with an income, and she still had time to homeschool her 2 girls before lunchtime, which was amazing to me. She also proved to me personally that homeschooling is the best thing you can do in education, so that education will help you through the difficult times in your life. Now let me explain what I mean by that, and she can elaborate on it later. She had a major surgery on her legs, or on her foot, right? On her foot. And she wasn't able to walk for about 6 months, yet she could still homeschool. And some of that happened during COVID. So while other kids were having a hard time, they weren't getting the education that they needed, they weren't able to go to school and to get what they needed, or the online service wasn't providing it, and a lot of kids fell behind. Her 2 kids actually excelled because she was able to continue their education right on time. And then my husband and I got COVID, and Ron was we both were hospitalized, but he was not expected to live. And she went into this overload. Well, I'll come to the hospital every day and I'll take care of you guys. And then her and Jamie moved in with us, and guess what happened? She kept the homeschooling going because she just brought the kids over here to the house. So we're sitting in my kitchen having a ball together. We've been talking while Jamie was getting all the photography stuff together. The kids are outside playing, but we have been having a ball going over all the individual things that parents who want to homeschool need to know. So Amy, the first thing, tell us why and how you reached your decision to homeschool.
Whew. Well, thanks for having me. And that is a very interesting story. So, as you know, I was teaching at the time, and the first time I ever thought about homeschooling was at 5 o'clock in the morning as I'm standing in front of my mirror to get ready for the day. And I remember I'm standing there and I'm putting on my mascara, and the thought just popped in my head, like, have you ever thought about homeschooling? And I remember standing there like, because
which it happens that way sometimes.
It does. As an educator, I never thought about homeschooling.
Yeah.
Like, I enjoyed teaching in the classroom and I enjoyed what I was doing. Never had given it a thought. Well, that was the first time I ever encountered the thought. And then over the course of the next 4 or 5 months, I kept running into people who were homeschooling. Doesn't it always happen like that?
Yeah, yeah.
And was asking them, like, how do you do this? Tell me a little bit more about it. I'm interested to hear your story. And the more people told me, the more I was like, well, that's interesting.
Yeah.
And there were, unfortunately, things at the school that I was at that were going on as summertime came that I wasn't thrilled with, things that were happening at the school. So as my husband and I were trying to figure out, what are we going to do? Do I continue at this school? Do I find a new school? Like, that homeschool thing is rolling around in the back of my head. And one day I woke up and I was like, I feel like if I don't do this, I'm going to regret it.
Yeah.
And so my husband and I sat down and talked about it. And I said, I really feel like I need to do this. And our oldest was going into kindergarten that coming year.
Yeah.
And he said, if this is what you feel like you need to do, then go ahead. And so we started out the year kind of like, here we go.
But I remember too, from you talking to me about it, that you were having a great success at the school. There were kids you were helping.
Yes,
I
loved
you did.
my
I forget. Is it IUP or IEP?
IEPs.
Okay.
I was the special ed department at our school.
Yeah, and you were having great success. There were a couple of kids that you helped them just explode in their reading.
Yes.
And so leaving the school was not really about you and your teaching.
No, because it had been a great year and I was loving it. It was just like politics at the school, I guess I would say, that I wasn't enjoying. So it was only from that aspect that I was even thinking about not going back to the school. But as far as my teaching, I was probably one of the most memorable years I've had.
Yeah.
So it was totally a train rail, like 180 degrees from what I was thinking.
So even as a teacher, you were a little nervous about
Absolutely.
taking this on, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So what made you nervous? Just the fact going against what is normal?
Yes. And going totally different from what I've ever thought I would do.
Yeah.
So it was never even a thought to not send my kids to school and not, drop them off with another teacher and then be raised up in the school. I don't know why it was never a thought, but yeah, to think about like logistically, how do I homeschool? It's a different mindset than teaching in a classroom.
So even as a teacher who got a lot of accolades for the things that she did, you can sympathize with parents who are kind of worried or anxious or nervous about starting the homeschooling process.
Yeah, absolutely. I had to research how to do this whole homeschool thing.
Wow.
So.
And I know now you're advising other parents on how to do it and trying to help them get through the process, because I think you are so excellent, intelligent, fantastic, because I listen to you talk and I'll ask a question and it's just blah, 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 blah. You just give me all the answers I need. So I'm excited about what we're going to learn on this series. A lot of parents have issues in trying to figure out whether to leave the public school or not. And I know there's a lot of stuff that's going on in society right now, but how would you kind of set that up and advise them on what to think about?
Well, I think the first thing I would say is, aside from all the things we're hearing about schools, and aside from like what's being taught and all that, I think the first thing you really need to think about for your family is, why do you want to homeschool? Because for us, the reason why we wanted to homeschool was because I wanted Sophia, our oldest, to have a really good education. And I knew my daughter well enough, and I knew how the school system and how the day was going to go for her kindergarten, that she was going to be bored.
Oh, okay.
So for her, I felt like the more I thought about it and the more I thought about my child and how this school year was going to go, she was going to be the first one done with the assignment, because she was doing that for me at home. And then just the way a classroom goes, you have to wait for all the kids to finish. So in kindergarten especially, there's like centers or things that they can go to. Well, and I also knew my child well enough to be like, that's when she's going to go to a center, she's going to be a talker, and she's going to get herself in trouble. So why not bring her home? I can teach her the things she needs to know, but also the extra things in the time that she would
kind of raise the bar for her. Yeah, yeah. So does it work both ways? If parents know, okay, my kid's a little slow, if they do homeschooling, then they can spend more time with them? Is that how it would work?
Well, yes. Because if you think about a classroom in general, like a classroom may have 15, 20, 30 kids in it sometimes. So the teacher has to accommodate all of those kids. So when you are homeschooling, you can give one-on-one attention to your child. And they won't always get that in the classroom. That's not to say that teachers don't try to do that as much as possible. And there are really great teachers who will connect with their students on an individual level. But when you are one-on-one, you hear every thought, you hear every question, you can see everything they're doing, and so you can fully understand what your child is doing.
Okay, I'm going to break here for just a second. If you have questions that you want Amy to answer or me to just blab about, you can put it in the comment section, or you can go to debbiejansen.com and go to the contact page, and you can leave us a question. We'll try to answer it, right?
Sure.
Because I have a ton of questions here, and yet we're already off the beam. I'm off the question because I'm thinking to myself, okay, if you're promoting or helping them with either being too bored or maybe a little bit slower, it takes them a little longer to grasp the concepts. Not that they're having some mental issues, just hard to grasp.
Everybody works at their own pace.
Yeah, okay, thank you for saying it that way. Thank you. Because I work at my own pace, and you know, people would not like my own pace. Anyway, back to the subject. If the child is like that, then can you also help them with other idiosyncrasies and traits that maybe a public school teacher couldn't help them with, like getting distracted? That they're not really behind, they just get distracted. So I think you told me that Gracie likes to make up stories. And so when she does her, is it math? She draws pictures on the numbers, and maybe another teacher wouldn't understand that, but you do. You understand that she's actually learning when she makes up a story about the number 72.
Right. So for Gracie, she will, in the beginning, when we were first starting math with her, she would connect all the numbers to make a picture. And she is very much a story kid. Like, everything comes back to a story. She connects every word with a sentence. Like, everything is a story. And so I had to know that about her and then come back to her math and be like, okay, I know you're going to connect all the numbers and I know you're going to make a story out of this, but let's do our work first. And when you get all the problems done, then you can make whatever picture you want.
So what we're saying is homeschooling allows you to specialize it so that it fits each child.
Right. And knowing that that's something that she enjoys doing, and I know she wants to do that, I give her the opportunity to say, finish your work first and then draw your picture.
Yeah.
And so within the school day, we just account time for Gracie to draw her picture from her numbers.
Well, and it also gives you a chance then for Sophie to do more in-depth study to keep her interested.
While Gracie is drawing her picture with the numbers.
So,
but it also, I will say, the other part of that is that I learn a whole lot about Gracie through the pictures that she draws from her numbers.
That's interesting. Tell me how you do that.
So when I allow her that time to draw and make numbers, random numbers, like 2 + 2 = 4 on a page, and she'll connect them all and make, there was one day she made a delivery truck out of it. And there were like chickens and, I mean, all kinds of stuff. It was the most elaborate picture. And I'm looking at the original, like, okay, this was like 2 + 2 = 4, like just some random problems. And she made it into a delivery truck. Well, that gives me insight into her mind and how she processes things. And wow, she took this thing that was just concrete numbers and made something really elaborate out of it.
So what you're saying is when she gets stuck on a problem, can you use the artistic and creative abilities to help that?
Absolutely. So with Gracie, because I know that about her, when she gets stuck on something, I will make a story out of it. And that's how she comes back to it and is like, oh, I know what you mean then.
So for people who are contemplating homeschooling, this is a plus, right? Because
Absolutely.
if a public school teacher, and it's not their fault, but if they've got 20 kids and they've got to get a particular concept done, taking the time to spend 15 minutes with the truck chicken story is not something they have time to do.
Well, I can say from being a regular education teacher that just because of the time frame, you have to get all these things in and you get all these kids transported from here to there to get everything done, and the transitions just between subjects for all 20 or 30 kids in your class. For myself in special education, I had to go pick them up from their classroom. We had to come back. That's transition time. And so you don't always have time to let them be creative. You say, all right, once you get your work done, close your book, we gotta go.
Okay, this is just opening up a whole new world for me, Amy. We're going to be here. This series is going to take us some time, folks, so hang in here with us. If a child learns from being creative, is that why so many of them are bored with 2 + 2 = 4?
I mean, it could be, and it all has a place. So 2 + 2 = 4, it has a place. It's something that they need to learn. But I think one of the great things about homeschooling is that I don't have to, like, all right, we gotta go, like, pack it up, move on. You can't be drawing right now. Or whatever you were drawing, pack it up and put it away because we gotta go. And it's not necessarily to put down schools because it's just the way it has to be at school, but there's not always that time. So when I was a teacher, I would tell my students, like, this is wonderful. I love seeing what you're doing. However, you need to put it away now and you can finish it later. Instead of being able to give them the time to, like, wow, that's really cool, keep going.
Yeah.
It's just the way it is.
I'm trying to remember, I think there was some guy that does comics now or something that was having a really hard time, or maybe it was later, or when I was a kid, I don't remember, because I don't remember his name, but he was not doing well in school. And some teacher was able to take him under their arm and say, oh, you like to draw. Well, draw this concept and draw this concept and draw. And he actually became very famous for his drawings, but he was able to get through school and love it and then go to art school and then go on to business because that teacher was able to recognize that he learned through his drawings.
Right. And that's something that teachers in general try to do. And I know in working in special education, I had students where I could see that they just needed some sort of break. They needed a break to do whatever creatively that their mind needed. So I always tried to structure like my special education to say, okay, get all these things done so that your work is done, and then I'm gonna try and allot time for you to do this. Or I would go get them in what was their study hall, and I never took a break because I was always accommodating kids. But I would go get them during my planning period and bring them to my room and say, I'm planning, but you're gonna play instruments, or you're gonna draw, or you're gonna build something because I know that's your outlet.
Wow.
So there are teachers that try and incorporate that because I think it's healthy for kids. But as a homeschool parent, to be able to just incorporate it in our day
All the time.
is
All
great.
the time. And be able to recognize that in your, wow, that's fantastic. Let's see. I tell you what, we have about 10 more questions, so it's going to take us a while. But what we're going to do, we're going to split this up so that if you're watching and you have to go, you can come back next time and we'll finish the rest of the questions for you. Join us next time when Amy is going to talk about how you can get started on homeschooling and how you can be successful at it. Thank you so much for being with us today, Amy.
Thank you.
And to find out more, you can look in the comments section or you can go to my website at debbiejansen.com. Bye-bye now.